Hello, hello, and welcome to the Pink Plus podcast, a safe place for women who should know they aren't alone. I'm your host, Savanna Burns, and today I'd like to start the show with my story and why I felt called to start a podcast women can connect with in a judgment-free zone. For as far back as I can remember, I wanted to be a mom. I'm the oldest of 5 siblings, and I have the best mom money can buy. She is the one who really made me want to be a mom. She has such patience and handles parenting problems with grace. Most of the time. She's not perfect, none of us are, but she's very close. I've changed my mind about what I want to do for a career more than a dozen times. But one thing I had dreams of that stayed the same: motherhood. One thing I wasn't expecting to get in my way was my diagnosis of PCOS, or Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. Back in my early days, I used to think not having a monthly period was wonderful. It was a 24/7 opportunity to get it on without the fear of a mess. It was great not having cramps or PMS, and naive 18-year-old me didn't see a single red flag in the fact I would go months and months not bleeding, despite being so inconsistent with my birth control. Cringe. It wasn't until I met my last boyfriend and went 8 months with no period that it finally started to occur to me that something could be wrong. I took pregnancy tests and every single one of them was negative. I spent my fair share down the rabbit hole of Google, finding out what could be wrong, and things started to look kind of serious. I then became scared to get help. I remember one day I had bad lower abdominal pains and laid in bed crying. My boyfriend had gotten so fed up of me dancing around the issue that he called and made me a gyne appointment himself. At that appointment, they ran some tests and came to the conclusion that I have PCOS, meaning that my ovaries create cysts over the follicles and it hinders ovulation. Suddenly, it made sense why I had such a hard time losing weight, why I had a crazy libido, why my moods were changing rapidly and bouncing off both ends of the spectrum. Then the real reality hit me. While we weren't actively trying to get pregnant at the time, it meant that when I was ready, it was going to be difficult. About 2 years into our relationship, we started having conversations about starting a family soon. My still boyfriend was ready to move back to his hometown and seek another job opportunity, assuming I'd be following. I'll spare you the details about the move, but we ended up in Sin City back in 2019. That year ended up being the best and hardest year of my life. We moved in June, got engaged in August, and almost drowned in an accident at the river a week later. We had decided we'd put a pause on taking the Clomid and trying to conceive until after the wedding, then proceed with IUI. That plan didn't work out. We found out we were pregnant in early October. After the river accident, I was so traumatized and trying to heal, but all I could do was cry. I had panic attacks randomly and I was spiraling. My doctor back home upped my antidepressant dose and it had only just started helping when we found out we were expecting. I then weaned off my meds within a week. For the next 4 months, I lost my mind. I was so happy to find out I was pregnant because it had been such mental torture, fearing I'd never get to be a mom. But not far into my first trimester, my hormones wreaked havoc on my mental health. I no longer wanted to be pregnant. I didn't think I wanted to be a mom anymore, and I would drive to my mom's house just to lay in her bed and cry. At one point, I told her I suddenly understood why women had abortions. I still carry the guilt of saying that about my son to this day. I told my OB how I felt. Something was wrong. I knew pregnancy wouldn't be like Disneyland and this nonstop fun ride, but I was just falling deeper and deeper into a dark hole. She refused to give me an antidepressant because of the risk to the baby. While I understood she wanted to keep my son safe, I don't think she understood how much danger I was in. I didn't want to live anymore. I hated waking up in the morning. When I tried to explain to my now husband, which, side note, we got married in the courthouse, so I'd be double covered on insurance, with the expectation I would still get my nice wedding ceremony the following May. So anyways, when I was trying to explain my feelings to him, he would just tell me that I should feel grateful to be pregnant, quote unquote. It didn't help, dude. It wasn't until midway through my second trimester that my sister-in-law, who experienced depression and pregnancy also, convinced me to switch OBs. When I did, my new doc jumped at the chance to give me a low-dose antidepressant to help. When things started to look a little brighter, COVID hit. Now I had to worry about keeping myself and my unborn child safe, all while working at an urgent care that saw multiple COVID-positive patients a day. It wasn't long before I lost my job, and although I felt terrible for my coworkers, I could breathe a sigh of relief for myself because now I could stay home and isolate the best I could to keep my baby healthy. Skip to the birth of my boy. I think I'll save the birth story for another day, but after the delivery, I think I only had a couple weeks maybe of postpartum depression. There's one day that stands out in my mind because I cried all day. I couldn't stop. My mother-in-law came over to see the baby, and I wiped my tears away, went downstairs, and as soon as she said a word to me, the tears welled up again. I was a mess. Hormones are a bitch. The doctors tell you not to have sex for 6 weeks after birth and will do their best to put you on birth control to prevent getting pregnant too soon. I wasn't interested in taking any hormones that would make it hard for me to get pregnant. After all, we had tried almost 2 years to get pregnant the first time. I had taken Clomid for 3 cycles the first time. So really, we never technically weren't trying after our son was born. We always wanted to have our kids back to back, so getting pregnant while the baby was young really didn't intimidate me. Now I'm going into round 4 of Clomid again and battling a whole new cycle of harsh thoughts, dark thoughts, and terrible hormones. I'll leave the story there and maybe we can pick it up another time. But my goal is to advocate for women who suffer in silence, the ones afraid to say what they're thinking or feeling because they feel alone or like they'll be judged for their feelings. I often post on social media about my struggles and have gotten so much positivity and support when I show the raw and ugly side of trying to conceive and depression in pregnancy. Infertility affects so many women, and oftentimes there are women we had no idea struggled who pop up to show us their support. That's why I'm creating Pink Plus. My vision for this podcast is to have women from all walks of motherhood, depression paths, women who don't desire motherhood at all, to come together and share their experiences so that maybe the stigma can be broken about infertility and motherhood, or lack thereof. Judgment-free zone. Women supporting women. So if you, listener, are struggling yourself, you'll find this as a place where no dark thought is too dark. I welcome you with open arms. Please join me in growing our safe space. Thank you for listening. Catch you next time.